Okay. So do you have any question regarding last lecture? Oh, let me go to the recording because some point of time. No, this is, I don't know why no recording is showing. This is a problem, or sometimes it shows the recording. Anyhow, today I cannot record because I'm already late and okay. So if anybody wants to record the screen or take a screenshot of the calculation, you can do, because today there is a problem in our system. If you log in from BHU site in Google, then you can record. If you cannot, then you cannot. Okay, first let me start the class. Do you have any question? I have not taught you anything, but
Hello.
yeah.
Sir, I wasn't present in previous class. It will be better if you recapitulate the previous class.
No, previous class, actually, whatever I taught is the gist is that you have to think deeply the topics you already know, and new topics you learn fast. Then second reading you have to deep thinking. So I took an example with the Newton's law, Newton's first law, and tried to explain you that there are so many things. Newton's first law we have studied long ago, but we have not thinking those things deeply. So you have to think deeply. Now you are in a dedicated physics course. You are doing physics honors, so you have to think. So today what I'll start the many particle system. And we'll see the need of new methods. So in many particle systems, suppose I have uh, n number of particles. So if I want to study this system, so they have mass say mi, and their position vector say ri. So each particle I equal to say 1, 2 to n. So I'll write a and the force, external force. Let us write external force on each particle, on ith particle, is Fi. Okay. So let me write the Newton's law. I want to study this time dynamics of this system. So first we have to find that each dynamics of this system is, you have to find the dynamics of the each and individual particles. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll study the dynamics of each and every particle. So suppose mth particle, it will be the
सर
yeah. Hello.
सर वो जो आप लिख रहे हैं वो दिख नहीं रहा है यहाँ पे.
You cannot see my board.
Yes sir, board is not visible.
Sir, I can see.
Sir, we can see.
It is visible.
तो जो इसका
Yes,
नहीं
sir,
दिख रहा है वो
visible.
लॉग आउट करके लॉग इन करिए, ठीक है. Okay, so this say momentum, rate of change of momentum of the ith particle p dot, that we know is equal to the force. So let me write the equation motion for particles. So I can write, there is a ith particle, there is a Fi. So if I want, you can write a E to external force, and then you can have that all other particle can exert force on the ith particle. So this will be, let me write F J I, and J equal to J not equal to I, but 1 to n. Okay. Did you get? So for example, there are two particles, they're charged particles. So second particle will feel a force due to the first particle. So here ith particle will feel the force from the n minus 1 other particle. So J not equal to I, and otherwise it is 1 to n. So this will be the Newton's equation. And if you have say 10 particles, so this is a sum. So number of force, there will be 9 such term, and there is the external force which acts on the system. Okay, so this equation you need to solve. So if you can solve this equation to find what is the Ri value which changes with time, then you can say that you know the dynamics. But so far classical mechanics means finding the Newton's law, second law particularly, and then you solve it. This is basically a second order differential equation, and you can solve it. Even you cannot, your computer can solve. So this in principle, a classical system, always you can find a solution. That if you find the solution of and find the each Ri, you can find the dynamics. So this is the system of multiparty. But problem is that this quantity, this position vector is a vector, and this equation is basically a complicated vector equation. And we may have to keep track of the direction of each and every vector, and that is actually leads to the lot of difficulties. People go to the center of mass, then separate the center of mass degrees of freedom and the relative degrees of freedom, and it is extremely difficult. Even I'll tell you, the Kepler's problem is just a two-body problem, two-body central force problem. Central force means the interaction doesn't depend only on the magnitude of the radius vector. It does not depend on the orientation of the coordinate axis. That means does not depend on the. So if potential is only function of R, central force means. And that problem can be solved exactly. Even if you have arbitrary theta dependence here, you cannot solve. If you have go to three body, it is almost difficult except few problems. And if you go many body, only one or two potential you can solve. So this is the situation. Situation is that it is extremely difficult to solve a many particle systems. So if you want to, anybody want to take a snapshot of this, you can take, because today I'm not recording because of I was late. And in this, Gobind Chand is now entering after 15 minutes. So this is ridiculous. Okay. So now we look for some alternative. Alternative approach. So I explained that it is difficult to study multi-particle systems or system having many particles and they are interacting, then it is extremely difficult. So we look for a alternative approach, and that is the mainly the topic of this course. And this approach is called the Lagrangian approach or Hamiltonian. Just for name, I'll tell you what is Lagrangian, etc. later. Okay, Lagrangian approach or later Hamiltonian. So if you know this approach, then this course you can know the classical mechanics. At least if you know how to find a Lagrangian, half of the learning is over. But what is Lagrangian approach, etc. I'll tell you. Before that, we need to know few things. First thing is that degrees of freedom. So we need that degrees of freedom. So few things we need to know. First is the degrees of freedom. This is you are little bit familiar with these degrees of freedom, but let me define again that degrees of freedom is the number. So let me write number of independent variables required to specify the position of a system at any instant of time. I ask you to follow this definition because lot of students confuse with the degrees of freedom. They
Sir?
bring it that rotational
Sir?
degrees. Just wait. Let me finish. Then I'll rotational degrees of freedom, vibrational degrees of freedom, kinetic energy. All these, don't go for any confusion. This is the definition I will be talking about all the time in this course, and this is the definition for a classical mechanics course definition. Yes, now your question.
तो
हेलो
सर जो थर्मोडायनेमिक्स में डिग्रीज ऑफ फ्रीडम होता है तो उसमें सर
भूल
थोड़ी
जाओ।
डेफिनेशन अलग होती है
हाँ, तो this I said ना, this
Okay.
I said the definition of a degrees of freedom. So I'm not going to discuss you thermodynamics. I'm not going to discuss the thermodynamics you have learned from some teacher. So those are things. Now get clear about some concept. You try to compare that what are the degrees of freedom used in thermodynamics, whether they are same or not, where the difference, why the difference. So deep thinking. There you have to do. Degrees of freedom is a old topic. So you need deep thinking. Spectroscopy people use another. So I'm not saying those are incorrect. Please mind. There are different ways to define certain things. So the degrees of freedom, I said, if you have any confusion about this definition, tell me. Example is that suppose some event is happening at the in the flyover near Kant station. So to describe the position of that event at 12:19 time, and right now time is 12:19 minutes. So in this time something happened. So you need how much distance along x-axis that point from here, x-axis, y-axis, and how much height, z-axis. I can, if I specify x, y, z of that point, taking a origin from here or anywhere else, then I can reach there. I said, okay, this accident is happening in the flyover of this place, which is that kilometer of x direction, that kilometer of y direction, and that 100 meters of height, or kind of thing. So that is the position and any instant of time. So particular time. So that will specify the position. Okay. So I'll consider some examples. It will be clear. Suppose one particle means point particle. Again, remind you the last class we discussed also point particle and extended particle. Point particle. So one point particle in 3-dimensional space. So it has 3 degrees of freedom. So n particle in 3-dimensional space will have 3n degrees of freedom. N particle in n dimension, say I'm not or m dimension, let me write m dimension, it will have n cross m degrees of freedom. They are free. There is no restriction to these particles. Okay. So degrees of freedom depends on the dimension. Which dimension? If you are considering 2-dimension plane, then degrees of freedom will be 2 for a point particle, single particle. If you have more particles, if you have 2 particles in a plane, degrees of freedom will be 2 into 2, 4. You have 100 particles, then it will be 200 in a plane. If it is a 3-dimension, you will have 300 for 100 particles. So these are degrees of freedom, and it is very simple. But degrees of freedom reduces when there is restriction in the motion particles. I say, okay, a free particle in 3D, in degrees of freedom equal to 3. But I say a particle not free is moving on a circle. Okay, on a plane. So it has a restriction. Particle cannot go anywhere, but only move on a circumference of a circle. So in a plane, that means 2 degrees, supposed to be 2 degrees of freedom, but there is some restriction. So these restrictions are known as constraints. Constraints in the system. So if you have more and more constant, then degrees of freedom will be less. So more constant implies less degrees of freedom. Okay. So these are what are the constraints? Constraints are the restriction to the motion, free motion. Okay. So is that clear?
No, sir. Sir, particle is moving on a circle. Sir, then how it will have 2 degrees of freedom?
I'm not saying
sir,
2 degrees of freedom. Where I said the particle on a circle.
Sir, I didn't understood it about.
I didn't say 2 degrees of freedom. If you have listened that, you have listened something else.
Sir, it is written on the board.
Yeah, don't see in the written. Listen my language. It's supposed to have 2 degrees of freedom, but restriction will reduce it.
Okay, sir.
So board is written. If you are not paying attention when I wrote that and what sentence I used, I didn't say the particle moving on a circle on a plane has 2 degrees of freedom. I didn't say. I said it's supposed to. Plane means 2 degrees of freedom, and then I said it will reduce. So whatever degrees of freedom the particle will have, less than 2. That I said.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yeah. Listen carefully. I am speaking very slowly.
Yeah, sir. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. So it will have less than particle on a plane means supposed to have 2 degrees, and then it will reduce. Restriction means constant, and more constant is less degrees of freedom. So in case of particle moving on a circle, there is one supposed to be 2 degrees of freedom and one constant. So degrees of freedom will be 1. So for particle. Okay. So now let us consider. So there are constraints, and there are many type of constraints, and we have to learn the types of constraints and how to deal those constraints. Okay. So for a rigid body, another concept first class we said rigid body. Rigid body is collection of particles. So you have particles, many particles, but not those particles are free. Rigid body has n number of particles, but a body will be called rigid body if the distance between the 2 particles is constant. Any 2 particles for any I and j. So I have say 1, 2, 3, 4. So R12 will be constant, R13 will be constant, R14 will be constant, R14 2, 3 will be constant, and so on. So if this happens, then I said that then rigid a particle, this collection of particle is rigid body. So this should be, last class I didn't define rigid body, but I said rigid body is basically collection of. See, if I have this paperweight, the particle distance are constant between them. It's a rigid body. If I have some water in a container, this is not a rigid body because the interparticle distance in the inside the water liquid or gas changes, so they are not rigid body. Okay, so now my question, which you need some thinking. So what is the degree? What is the degree of freedom of a rigid body say in 3-dimensional space, in 3D? So what is the answer?
Sir, less than 3, and it should be less than 3. 3 into number of particles.
Yeah, it should be less, but do you know the answer?
Sorry, since the particle is zero, it should be 0 because there isn't any relative motion between the particles.
There is no relative motion. Why there is no relative motion? I said that particle distance between 1, 2 is fixed, 1, 3 is fixed, but I say it can happen. Suppose there are 3 particles. It can happen 2, 3 and 1 in moving in such a way that these 2 distances are fixed. This is possible?
Yes, sir.
Of course it is possible, right? So if I have, you can think of whatever knowledge I have given. You can suppose a rigid body has n. So if you have in 3 dimension, number of degrees of freedom supposed to be 3n minus number of independent constants. Right now I have not classified any constant. I will classify the constant. Number of independent constants. So that, but what is the degrees of freedom for a rigid body? Does anybody has any answer? Everybody knows actually. Nowadays, you also, some of you also know that a rigid body in 3-dimensional space has degrees of freedom 6. Does anybody knows this? How 6 comes? Okay, you don't know. Okay, I'll explain. No problem with that. This is very important. This rigid body dimension. So,
Sir, rotational, translational.
Sir,
Huh.
yes, sir. Sir, 3 translational in 3 X, Y, Z direction.
Sir, rotational, translational, and vibrational motions also.
And
Huh.
3
So that
three
what I
rotational.
said few minutes ago, that don't bring rotational, vibrational, you will be confused. So when in the exam I'll ask something else, not the degrees of freedom of a rigid body, but I'll ask something else, and then you will do the mistake. You don't have the correct way of learning. I first thing when I define degrees of freedom, say don't bring rotational, kinetic, translational, all these things. You understand deep thinking. First you learn basic things. Degrees of freedom, what I said, it is a school children can understand. If you don't understand, then you compare yourself with the school children. So this is the, you learn things very simple and clearly, such that when difficult situation will arise, you will be able to handle. But if you superficially fly over everything, you will not understand. First, my question, whatever I taught you, can you find degrees of freedom of a rigid body in 3-dimensional space is 6. So if you try to calculate this, because n is not fixed, na? For rigid body, n can be anything impensible, n can go to infinity. So calculating in this fashion is difficult. Okay. So, but n should be large. This is the definition of any rigid body you have. N should be very large. Okay, so now let me tell you the degrees of freedom calculation in a rigid body. Suppose this is a rigid body. And you have 3 particles. Say. There are many particles, so let me write 4, 5 particles. Okay. Okay. So now if I have I just taught you, if you have a system of 5 particles, then free. Suppose they are all free. Then I said that particle 1 has 3 degrees of freedom, particle 2 has 3 degrees of freedom. So 5 particles will have 15 degrees of freedom. All are free. No constraint, no restriction. But if there is a restriction, then you have to count number of independent restriction. So when I have a multiple particle, degrees of freedom of each particle will add up to give you the total degrees of freedom. So now let us consider this rigid body and let us count the degrees of freedom for each particle. So suppose this is your particle 1, this is your 2, this is your 3, this is 4 and so on. So I'll count the degree. So for particle 1, no restriction, right? For particle 1, I'm counting slowly. So particle 1, there is no in the picture I didn't bring second particle. So particle 1 have 3 degrees of freedom because no IRJ will arise with one particle. Rij will arise when there will be minimum 2 particles. So for particle 3, there is no IRJ, so there is no constraint. So for particle 1, there will be 3 degrees of freedom. Now particle 2, what is his duty? His duty is to keep this distance fixed. R12 will be fixed. So particle 2 can move in a circumference of a sphere of radius R12. So particle 2 will have 3 minus 1, so 2 degrees of freedom. Now what about particle 3? Particle 3 is not free because particle 3 has to maintain this distance. Particle 3 has to maintain this distance. Particle 2 has to keep the distance 1, 3 fixed and R 2, 3 also fixed. So 3 supposed to be 3 degrees of freedom, but 2 constraint. So these are the 2 conditions has to satisfy. So it will have 1 degrees of freedom. Now come to particle 4. Particle 4 is this. So it has to satisfy this restriction. It has to satisfy this restriction. It has to satisfy this restriction. So particle 4 has to maintain 1, 4 equal to constant, 2, 4 equal to constant, and R 3, 4 also constant. So it has 3 degrees of freedom, 3 constant. So particle 4 has 0 degrees of freedom. I'm just counting degrees of freedom one by one, and I'll go to the n particle, n is large. 5th particle also, and so on, all particles, 4th plus all particles will have degrees of freedom. So total degrees of freedom will be 6. Okay. Any confusion here?
No,
Sir,
sir.
can you please explain once again?
Sir, what will
Sorry.
happen with nth particle?
For nth particle? See, if you beyond 4, 5th particle has to satisfy 4 conditions because 5th particle has to maintain distance between 1, 5. 5th particle has to maintain distance 2, 5. 5th particle has to maintain with the distance, same distance with 3rd particle. 5th particle has to maintain the distance between 4 particles. So 5th particle cannot move in this picture. I am analyzing the rigid body in this picture. I am considering bringing particle one by one. So when I had the first particle, it does not have any requirement because there is no second particle in the picture. So first particle, we are assuming it has 3 degrees of freedom. Now, when I bring the second particle has to maintain this distance. And immediately I find that it has 1 degrees of freedom less because one condition has to satisfy. It can move on a surface of a sphere around this point. Around taking a center, you can move on a sphere of this. So it will have 2 degrees of freedom. Now, third particle has 2 constraints. it has to maintain this distance, it has to maintain this distance. So it will have 1 degree of freedom. Now, 4th, 5th, 6th, and up to any infinite particles, all degrees of freedom, because they are totally fixed. So it will have 6 degrees.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so this is counting, a method of counting. Okay, one can do this method, and I'll appreciate that if you can find taking n, consider limit n going to infinity, try to calculate number of independent constant here when n is large, 3n minus this, take n going to infinity limit and find 6. If you can do that, then it will be very good. Supposed to come, right? Conceptually. Mathematically, I don't know, but you have to find. Okay. Now degrees of freedom is over. Now problem for you that if you have a rigid body moves on a plane, rigid body moves on a plane, then how many degrees of freedom? Okay, so this you try to find, and I'll ask in the next class, tomorrow's class. Okay,
4
a
होगा ना?
rigid body moves on a plane, how many degrees of freedom?
4 degrees of freedom.
I am not asking your answer, and you are giving a wrong answer. This is the first lesson, first lecture. Think clearly. Now you'll come with, tomorrow you'll come with 1 degrees of freedom. You'll come with 5, all possible. If I ask this question in a multiple choice question, 5, 4, 3, 2, all possible, 1, all possible. And then I get all kind of answer. And only one of the answer is correct. Rest 4 is incorrect. Okay. So think about it and tell me answer tomorrow. I'm not asking you that immediately give the answer. Okay. So I'll now shift my attention from degrees of freedom to constraints. So we find that there are constraints and there are various type of constraints. So let me tell you that classification of constraints. Okay, so there are many independent classification. Independent classification means first there are different types. So first type is holonomic and second type is non-holonomic. So holonomic and non-holonomic. Constraints. I'll define. So if your constant, see when I write that particle moves on a okay, let me define then consider. Holonomic constant says the constant equation can be written in terms of say x, y, z, t equal to 0. If it is written in terms of a function equal to 0, where we have the x, y, z, no velocity dependence. So notice, but if you have a constraint, okay, so if the constraint equation written in like this, look at carefully, there is no x dot, y dot, z dot, but there is t. So if a function written in terms of a constant, then we call this is a holonomic. Example, that particle moves on a circle. So if a particle moves on a circle, constant equation is x square plus y square equal to a square. So your f x y will be x square plus y square minus a square, right? So, and that equal to 0. So it is a holonomic constant. But if it is not of this kind, then all other constants are non-holonomic. So what means that? Sometimes it may have a no equal sign. So for non-holonomic, velocity dependent, for example, I have a constant, say x dot to the power 3 by 2 y square plus x y dot to the power 1/3 kind of thing equal to 0. It depends on x dot, x component of velocity. X depends on y component of velocity. So velocity dependent, bracket in bracket I'll write non-trivial. This I'm writing in non-trivial because the student do mistake. Non-trivial. I'll explain what is the meaning of non-trivial. Second thing is that if you have velocity dependent, and if you have not equal sign, so if you may have not equal to sign, then I consider that constant is non-holonomic. So in the whole world, whatever constant are there, either they are holonomic or non-holonomic. Okay, either they are expressed in terms of equations without involving velocity, then it is holonomic. If it is depends on velocity non-trivially, I'll explain meaning of non-trivially, then it is non-holonomic. If there is no equal sign, see if I write f x y z greater than 0, then if I have inequality sign, then it is non-holonomic. Okay, so let us consider some example. So for example, I said the particle moves on the surface of a sphere. Okay, so I know that it has to satisfy equation x square plus y square plus z square minus s square equal to 0. So it is holonomic type. So it is holonomic. If I said that some particles are confined inside a sphere, that means the position vector of any particle should be less than the radius of the radius of the sphere, because you have this container, spherical container, particles are here, their positions are less than this. I'm saying some thickness is there, and if particle come out, then radius will be equal. So I'm ruled out that equal sign. So this can be a non-holonomic. Now velocity dependent. Now my question is that, so this is unequal sign. So this is one non-holonomic type. Suppose I have a constant x dot x plus y dot y equal to 0. This is my constant equation. Suppose. Then is this constant holonomic or non-holonomic?
So no.
No.
So most of you are saying it is a non-holonomic because it depends on velocity and it's supposed to be non-holonomic. But if you have little bit knowledge of calculus, you can think of this constant is basically x square plus y square equal to a square. These two constants are same. If I differentiate this quantity, I'll get 2xx dot plus 2yy dot equal to 0. So xx dot plus yy dot equal to 0. But this is a holonomic. You are saying this is a non-holonomic. So all velocity dependent constraints are not non-holonomic. This is a velocity dependent constraint, but it's still a holonomic. That is my meaning of non-trivial. Non-trivial means velocities cannot be integrated to to find the coordinate equation. If it is found to be integrated, then it is holonomic. If you cannot perform this integration, then it cannot be performed. Whether you can do or not, that is different. It cannot be eliminated. Velocity cannot be eliminated. Then it will have the non-holonomic constant. So this is the meaning of non-trivial velocity dependence. Non-trivial means that velocity dependence cannot be eliminated. You cannot integrate to write the velocity dependent equation in a coordinate dependent equation. Then it will be a if you cannot, then it will be non-holonomic. If you can, then it will be a coordinate dependent equation. So it will be holonomic. Okay, clear? Any question here?
No, sir.
Okay, so this question I asked, I give many velocity dependent which can be integrated, which cannot be integrated. Now, one example that I asked you, now I'm asking you to do. Suppose I have an inclined plane. There's some incline with the fixed angle. Okay. Okay, and now I'm considering a sphere. When I write sphere of radius a, so that means it is a rigid body. Okay, and also consider a cylinder which is also a rigid body rolling in this without slipping. So only rolling, no translational. There is no skid. It's not skidding. So this is only while coming down, it is rolling. Now tell me how many degrees of freedom this sphere will have. So solid sphere, rolling, no slipping, then how many degrees of freedom? And so this is solid sphere. And solid cylinder. In both cases, so what is the constant equation? Can anybody tell? The good student should tell that what will be the constant. Suppose consider the sphere. What will be the constant equation? A sphere rolling on an inclined plane. So what is the condition for rolling?
Sir, velocity of point of contact is 0.
Yeah, tell.
Sir, the velocity of point of contact with the surface is 0.
That is fine, but can you express in terms of some equation? The velocity of the...
So y equals x tan theta. Y equals x tan theta.
No, that you know that condition of rolling V and omega, there is a relation, right?
Yes, sir. V is equal to R omega.
Yeah, omega cross R, right? So this is a vector equation. So if I write all components, it will have 3. So this is a vector equation. Now if I write this in 3 scalar equation. So there will be 3 independent constants. But now question is that this is depend on velocity. Okay, it is depend on velocity. So these constants are holonomic or non-holonomic, that you have to check. For both cases, sphere and cylinder. It is not easy to solve. But I am asking you as a homework, you try to solve it. That this is a vector equation and depends on velocity. So vector equation means it's 3 scalar equation. So you can scalar equation and then try to see whether this velocity can be eliminated or not. If you can eliminate, all velocities component, then you can say it is a holonomic constant. If you cannot sum of them, then it is a non-holonomic constant. So do this exercise for solid sphere and solid cylinder, and you will get some surprising result, some understanding. If you have difficulties, you can consider a book by Rana and Chok. This book has this discussion. I'll not go much discussion on this, but you will find very interesting result that whether these constants are holonomic or non-holonomic. Okay, let me finish the classification of these constants. There are many other classification of constants. For example, some dionomic and scleronomic. So other classes. So this is B type. First I wrote A type, holonomic and non-holonomic. Now I writing B type, dionomic and second type is scleronomic. So any constant which constants depend on time explicitly. Okay, then those constants are called dionomic. RHEONOMIC, dionomic constants. I'll give you example. So constant depends explicitly on time, and this scleronomic means no explicit time dependence. Categories. One is the time dependent, another is time independent, explicit. Explicit, then you can say that this is dionomic. If there is a time dependent, then you can scleronomic. So suppose I give you a pendulum. If this L is fixed, does not change with time, then I said that this pendulum has constant because this L is fixed. So, but it is a holonomic constant, scleronomic in this sense. I am discussing, of course, holonomic, but I am now discussing scleronomic. If I have a pendulum, explicitly depend, then this will be dionomic. For example, if you have some kind of spring in kind of string, you can have a dionomic. Okay, and there are many classification, but I'm not going to see. We only interested in holonomic, non-holonomic, and mostly your course is only on holonomic. This is first course in classical mechanics, and it is on holonomic. Mostly we will deal with holonomic constant. C type of classification is conservative constants and non-conservative. So define is that, so there is a constant means restriction, and there is restriction means some force is responsible for that. Right? When you have a constraint in the system, somebody is doing, some force is doing that constraint. Restriction is happening due to some force. So if the force of constraint is conservative, then it is called conservative constant. If that force of constraint is non-conservative, then it is called non-conservative constant. And I am not telling you what is a conservative force and what is a non-conservative force. You all are know that. Okay. So if the force of constant, depending on force of constant, you can have another classification. Here another homework problem for you. This is solved in many books, so you understood that. You should understand that the constraint in a rigid body is conservative type. Okay, so prove this. This, if you first try to do yourself without looking at books, and then you can look at books where it has solved. And you have all information. For a rigid body, you have to see what are the force of constant, and that force is a conservative type or not. So to check a force conservative or not, there are many ways you can check. So I have given many homework. One is that find that non-holonomic, holonomic for the spherical solid sphere, solid cylinder, and then also this. So I'll stop here. This is unless you have quick question in 2 minutes, and otherwise you keep your question ready for tomorrow's class at the beginning. And today also there are at least 6 people came late. I am requesting that. It disturbs me, and if you continue that, then I'll not allow. See, I control in my hand. So if you are coming beyond 5 minutes late, I'll not allow you next time. Okay, so first few times I'm giving warning, but my request that come in the class in regular times. If you feel that okay, I'm teaching too simple because it looks like I'm teaching too simple things, so don't come to my class. If some 5 people, 3 people, 1 people comes to the class, I'll take class. If no people comes to my class, I'll not take class. Okay, so if you have any question, quick question for today's lecture, you can. If you may have some question for tomorrow. Tomorrow I'll take class. You can ask.
Sir, you said that the constants which are holonomic and the other left out are non-holonomic. So these B and C categories are different, or they also occur within the holonomic and non-holonomic?
No. I said independent. They are independent. So some conservative constant can be non-holonomic. Some conservative constant can be holonomic. Some scleronomic constant can be holonomic. Some scleronomic constant can be conservative. Okay. So they are independent classification. That A, B, C, which I wrote, are independent. Nothing to do. So one constant at the same time becoming holonomic, can be scleronomic, can be conservative. Okay. So I hope all constants are divided conservative or non-conservative. All constants are divided holonomic or non-holonomic. Okay, they are independent. So that repeatedly I am saying, please pay attention to that. And for our purpose, holonomic constants are very important. And the new classical mechanics we are going to study is mostly based on holonomic constant. But we also will study how to deal with non-holonomic constant. So tomorrow I'll introduce a new concept called generalized coordinate. And then tomorrow, hopefully, I'll be able to introduce the Hamilton's principle and the concept of Lagrangian. Because Dr. Kishta will also teach, and Lagrangian concept should be introduced as quickly as possible. Any other question? And I'm saying repeatedly, don't come late. Okay, maybe I'll stop. Nobody has any questions, so bye.